see you
Nice to see
again.
him. Yeah, nice to see you again, Macon. How you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. When they told me there was a chance to interview you again, I said, "Well, I already spoke to him, so I don't know if he's going to want to talk to me again." And they said, "Go for it." So here
I'd
we
love
are.
to.
And I got to tell you, so before I'll dive into my thing real quick. This is Matt from Macabre Daily here, here to talk with Macon Blair, the writer director of the Toxic Avenger, which is now out on VOD, and you can pick it up on Blu-ray and 4K, which I certainly will on October 28th. But Macon, I recently had the chance to meet the like, most of the original cast of the original Toxic Avenger last weekend because they all happened to be in the
Amazing.
same place at the same time. And I asked them what their thoughts were on the remake, and they said they loved it. And a lot of the reason they said that is because it felt like it didn't try and replace the original. It acts as a perfect kind of companion piece to it. So I thought you should hear that
Oh
because
my God.
coming from them to you.
That feels really, really good to hear. Honestly, there was a little inside baseball, but there was a time where I had tried to write in a scene to this that would have, in theory, made use of Mark Torgel and Mitch and some of the others. And it was during the Delta wave of COVID. There was a lot of reasons where like it ultimately we weren't able to do it, but I had wanted to do that early on. So that's really nice to hear that from them because I definitely was hoping that the original folks would get down with it. So that's great to hear.
Yeah, they loved it. They picked up on the Easter eggs, and I think we were all kind of just singing your praises at the for together about how what a tremendous job you did at bringing this to life. And now that it's kind of come to theaters, now heading to physical media, I'm curious to think about or ask you a little about kind of what lessons you've learned in some hindsight. I mean, this has had such a strange production history, and it made it to where it's supposed to be seen in a theater full of people. So, as you reflect on the experience, is there anything that stands out as being, wow, I really learned something here, or maybe I'll never do that again, kind of thing?
I think I learned that you partner with Cineverse right out of the gate.
Amen to that.
Um, no, and you know, I think that the weight in there might have been what sort of got us. I mean, I'm not sure what was under the hood during those 2 years, but I've said frequently, and I really mean it, that if waiting 2 years meant that you get to partner with somebody like Cineverse who puts it in theaters, who gives it a really enthusiastic marketing campaign, and then comes up with this fucking undue medical debt thing,
That was rad.
just above and beyond, then I'll wait twice as long. Whatever. Like I couldn't be happier with where the movie has ended up and what they've been able to do with it and the way that they put their resources to work to market the movie in a really positive way like that. It was very cool to see.
Yeah, and to tell folks, just $15 million of unpaid medical debt was paid off through this campaign, which is amazing, especially at a time when many folks are just trying to make ends meet and working multiple jobs. So the fact that some people have an alleviated burden of debt off their shoulders, I'm sure means more to them than, even these films mean to us. But I think it's, in service of the broader good that you all are trying to make. So it's a strong testament to the film and what you stand behind it. And when you think about being an independent filmmaker, like, you've cut your teeth in so many parts of the industry as both writing and acting, directing. Now that you've kind of operated as a filmmaker within the studio system, what are some of the things that kind of you've come away thinking about as far as how folks that are getting the chance to move out of, independent productions and into bigger studio financed ones? What are some tips or tricks you'd give them as they get that opportunity, or should they get that opportunity?
Yeah, I think it's like it's easier said than done, and I don't know what everybody's situation would be, but with this one, it had such a peculiar tone. And like I think what ended up being really useful and positive ultimately was just figuring out how to stay very true to that, even when it may have seemed like a little strange at certain points or a little like is this not going to be commercial enough? And I'm not saying I was getting like notes like that. That was more sort of pressure that I was putting on myself
Sure.
and doubting whether or not these jokes were going to land in particular, or this sort of like tone that I was trying to feel connected and consistent with the original movies was going to land with audiences. Um, and ultimately, I think staying true to that and really staying focused on that ended up being uh, of best use to the movie. And in other words, like I think like even if I was doubting myself through some of the production and like, is this going to work or not? But doubling down on um, that sort of tone and that sort of texture that I felt like was important when I was writing it. And then when you're in the editing stage and you're kind of wondering like, is this going to pay off or not? But staying focused on that. And so I think it's like keeping your eye on whatever it was that got you excited about the thing in the first place, because there's going to be a lot of outside influences and you're putting pressure on yourself and there's pressure from all these different directions. But if you can sort of keep your eye on the thing that made you feel excited about the thing, whatever it is, in the first place, then that's that will be of best use to it. And sometimes that's easier said than done, but
The best
I,
advice is, honestly, the best advice is so easy to give. It's so hard
yeah,
to take.
yeah,
Um,
exactly. Yeah, from hindsight, because I could have gotten that advice when I was in the midst of it, and I wouldn't have heard it. But I'm just
right.
saying that from the other side of it, when the dust has settled a little bit, I'm really glad that we stuck with that particular version of the story, or that particular version of the character, or that particular editorial choice, whatever it was. I'm glad we stuck with it, even if it was I was not entirely sure about how that was going to land with people at that time.
Well, I got to tell you, I made it a point to see it in theaters with everybody else because as I watched it at home
Oh,
before, I was
good.
like, oh, there's no way that I'm going to get, I need to see this with people because that's the way it's supposed to be. And I got to tell you, the part where the mask, the chicken mask is removed, had the entire theater just erupting and laugh. Like they were laughing for like 5 minutes straight. And I laughed even harder seeing it in that environment than I did at home, just because I'm like, again, that theatrical experience, I think brings these movies are meant to be seen that way. And I think it's, another testament to Cineverse that they were able to get it and bring it to a theatrical because that's how these movies are best enjoyed. And as you think about the future of films like these, you're right, it does have a peculiar tone, but as someone who's a lover of Troma and all, and just odd tones in and of itself, I was totally, vibing from the get-go. But
Oh,
do
good.
you think do you think that there's kind of a place for these kinds of films at this budget level going forward? Because it's so much fun to see these movies that way. But again, I also know there's this like hesitation from, the financiers obviously of what we can and cannot show. But do you think there's a
Yeah.
future for big budget, trauma style movies in the going forward, or this is a one-off?
I honest to God, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, should there be? Yeah, I, I think people would respond to it, but at least the way things are right now, I think like at those higher budget levels, I think things need to be pretty square and pretty um uh focus tested and I think they want to feel very sure that it's going to be a big financial success. I think people are kind of risk averse these days, at least from and that's as an outsider's opinion. I'm not saying that from like, oh, this is what I've heard in meetings. This is just as a
Totally.
movie goer and seeing what gets made. That's what it seems like. And on one hand, I can understand that because what will happen is you could make a couple of weird movies and maybe some of them will pop, but also some of them won't. And then those will be used as the example of why you don't want to put big budgets behind more niche or specialty type projects. I don't know, but um, then you've got something like One Battle After Another that seems to be doing really great, and that's obviously a crowd pleaser and a thriller, but it's a very personal movie too.
Right.
So I don't know. I think things are cyclical, and hopefully like whatever is kind of tight about the situation right now will eventually become loosened up in the future, and there can be more um, experimental or personal type projects that are existing at that level.
Yeah, I mean, I think about the 70s and what would have happened if the studio system didn't back so many amazing filmmakers in the 60s and 70s, where we wouldn't have
Right.
gotten some of the most challenging and interesting films to date. And one of the things we know about the original Toxic Avenger that I believe will be true for this one is that it builds its status over time. It's something that I think people will tell other people about. And I'm curious to know, from your perspective, what are the ways in which people who love and enjoy this as much as someone like myself does, how can we kind of keep the toxic mop of the Toxic Avenger flying long beyond kind of the release dates, right? Because these things are so temporary. We have these moments to talk about it and relish in it, but then they pass and new things come along. So how do we keep that conversation going and help this film continue to find its audience?
I think you said it. I think it's just talking about it. It is a word of mouth thing, and that's exactly how I found the original. It was some older kids, my friend's older brother was like, "You've got to watch this movie. It's fucking insane. This guy hits people with a mop and he's wearing a tutu." And I didn't even understand what he was saying, but he was very enthusiastic about it. And we took his advice and we watched it, and it kind of blew us away. And so I think it's that same sort of thing, just people talking about it because we're so inundated with like everything is an ad for everything these days, and so, they have teasers for trailers for previews, and it's sort of like you can get lost in everything that's available out there. There's a bazillion things to watch, and I feel like the only thing that really cuts through that is somebody saying like, "Nah, dude, I saw this shit. It was tight. You should really check it out." And that's what would steer me towards watching something that wasn't otherwise on my radar. And so I think it's just human conversation.
Well, you've got my advocacy and everyone's gonna get annoyed with me talking about it because I'm gonna keep telling them to go watch the Toxic Avengers. And
I
they
love
have
it.
no excuse because it's on VOD now. It'll be on physical media on the 20th of October. And Macon,
Yes.
I've been so gracious for your time for a second interview, and
Oh, thank
hope I
you.
get to speak to you again.
I do too, man. Hope we get to connect again sometime soon, but thanks for coming back. It was good to talk to you again.
Absolutely. Take care.